Welcome to Silent Hill, where our hero James must survive legendary antagonists like car window, door stuck, and keyhole. We spawn into a national forest roadside bathroom like Miley Cyrus after a coke binge, and my first instinct is to just take the highway or try leaving and coming back to Silent Hill another time. But the forces of the Polish warlocks known as Bloober Team prevent a sane end to this story. On a mission to find the Pam to his gym, we set out into the fog-laden mist known as Maine, hoping to join Alan Wake and Ethan Winters in the realm of Wife Guy Valhalla. The first thing I try is to play with the stationary binoculars, but of course they aren't functional, which says a lot about the national park's ability to maintain the beautiful scenery of America. Or its symbolism that we're going in blind, who knows. Anyway, it's down the unkempt path to Toluca Lake when we're hit with the greatest jump scare of all time, an unexpected child. She can't seem to find her parents, but she gives us directions to Silent Hill by pointing out there's only one road and we can't miss it, and I'm like, yeah, stupid, I'm making conversation out of concern for you, no need to be so condescending, and then she warns us that it could be dangerous because something ain't quite right with that town, which we're about to discover is the understatement of the century. We make our way down the road to Silent Hill Ranch, complete with the most terrifying agriculture known to man, a foggy cornfield. There's something rustling around in the bushes and making spooky noises, and honestly, I can already see why this game is popular with the spooky girlies out there, because the vibes are already off the charts. We commit a bit of misdemeanor larceny in the auto mechanic shop next door to get our hands on the key that leads to town. The place is abandoned, and someone hung strips of white sheet over the broken window, and honestly, that's so eerie that I wouldn't break in there, but unfortunately for the mechanic, I'm trying to be husband of the year. After getting in our 10,000 steps for the day, we finally make it to Silent Hill, and the first thing I do is remove the publicly posted map to prevent anyone from being able to navigate the fog. It's a bit selfish, but very effective as a survival strategy. The fog makes this place really uneasy, and the music sounds like a slightly warped cassette tape trying to play while lit on fire, and I keep hearing things in the distance, and this soundtrack is leaving me with more dread than that panic attack I had about my parents dying last week. Honestly, calm down, bro. Anyway, there are these giant walls of white sheets in the middle of town that are dripping with black slime, and I'm more than a little curious what's behind these, but also, I'm not. Our first task is to explore anywhere with an open door or breakable window like a fentanyl addict on that daily grind. We stumble across some refuse in the middle of the road, and honestly, what kind of Karen is so entitled that she dumps her monthly leftovers in the middle of the street? I decide to track her down to give her an education in sanitary living, but she eludes us through the neighborhood and even tries to slip into a nearby garage to avoid the consequences of her actions. She's so committed that I was about to give up the chase when I found her wearing her own garbage bag. Honestly, I keep one of Mary's old tampons handy so I don't forget her scent, but it seems like Karen could use it a lot more than I can, and when I tried to offer it to her, she decides to attack me for it. Gross. After a tussle and a bash, she's out cold, and it's time to keep exploring for Mary. I know small towns have a bit of a reputation for drug use, but I didn't expect to find a bit of Philadelphia's national currency right here in the suburbs. This will come in handy for numbing the pain of my existence and the overwhelming depression that emanates through the fog straight into my soul. We lift this radio and I can hear Mary calling to me from the inside of it. I don't know what that says about my mental state, but we really got to find a way to get her out of there. I hope there's a reverse shrink ray around here somewhere, otherwise she's going to find out what happens when your girlfriend actually turns into a worm. The search continues, and it's here where the game really starts to settle into its rhythm, which I call breadcrumb gaming. If you find a small clue, it'll lead you to a location that has a puzzle with 2 or more obvious puzzle pieces and a clue about where to find one of them, so you go to get that one, and then when you get it, you either fight a Karen or get a clue for the second piece, and then go get that piece and solve the puzzle, which leads to the next breadcrumb. In this game, it really becomes a cascade of puzzles within puzzles within puzzles, and it will set the stage with 3 different clues and 3 halves of 3 different puzzles, but then they all collapse into a satisfying end of solving one after another to make it to the next area. Like here in Silent Hill proper, there's a Neely's Bar matchbook, which leads to the bar where a record is broken, and a note about the janitor smashing it and running off, so you go to where he was last seen and get half the record, then go to the record store for the other half and fight a bunch of Karens along the way, then a key pops out of the jukebox, which is kind of retarded, and then you can open the door, which leads to the other half of Silent Hill. There's going to be a lot more of this, so strap in, bucko, this is going to be the time of our... The final task in the rear alleyways of Neely's Bar is finding the key of an unhinged man, thought to be undangerous but who definitely lives in the Woodside Apartments. The note tells us which depressing car belonged to him and we seek it out. Beneath it is a pile of his remains along with his keys. So thoughtful to leave those intact for us, and then Now we're in the apartments, which I'm excited about because ruffling through the belongings of others is the spice which makes life nice, and this town is full of Karens anyway. The downside is that there isn't an ounce of moisturizer to be found because none of these two-faced bitches could afford the creams and cleansers needed to fix both. And while the fog is doing decent work on my skin, I'm not about to let myself go just because Mary decided to take a trip to the lake in October. So my eyes are peeled for a peel in these bathrooms. Unfortunately, it looks like there isn't much in here but refuse and a bit of gore, so I'll have to make do for now. Subscribe to show solidarity. Anyway, this place is full of dark-ass hallways, and it's about now that I really wish I had a flashlight and we're attacked by Kick Puncher, a warrior whose punches have the power of kicks, and this chick can dodge and weave like I show speed after an 8-ball. I put her down after taking some licks of my own, but I have a feeling this is only just the beginning of Kick Puncher Karen. I'm so thankful I have this flashlight, now I can see the floor 3 feet in front of me while my haters sneak up behind me and attack me in the dark, like a white woman in an 80s horror movie, except I can't cross the street to dodge encounters. What a nerf. We make our way to the courtyard and boost through the window. We find the key just barely within reach behind these bars, but this small monster kicks them out of reach and runs away cackling. She's by far the most evil being we've encountered, and she's lucky I haven't found my gun yet. We rifle through someone's armoire and find a wedding dress. Much to my dismay, it isn't an equipable item, so I can't bring it with me to sell. We find the key on the other side of the bars. The little demon has decided to scrawl her terrible art all over the walls. I can cope with a bit of light trolling, but disrespecting interior design is where I draw the line. This little girl is a monster and she's gotta go. I come back out and, Anyway, this guy bought a gun and failed the shopping cart test by bringing the entire cart home and riddling his apartment in bullets. All the same to me because we're strapped now and Kick Puncher is about to get hers. Looks like Grandma fell asleep watching The Price is Right, so I'm just going to leave her there because every time I used to wake my Mima up as a child, I had to dodge lit cigarettes coming from my neck. So I let her be and find an easy way back down to the courtyard. We still have to find the coins 3 and stumble on another armoire, and inside is the schizophrenic house of the damned. Puzzles start collapsing into each other now, and we get the first coin, a key to unlock the stairwell to the 3rd floor, and so we can make our way to the 2nd coin. First things first, we can explore the other half of the 1st floor now, so we make our way to this room and hear the sound of every university at about 4 a.m. on a Saturday. The tummy-troubled man is the first friendly face we've encountered in Silent Hill so far, a rotund dude named Eddie who insists he didn't kill the dead man hanging out of the fridge in the kitchen. I believe he wouldn't do anything like that. After all, he seems like a chill guy and he just needs some Pepto-Bismol and some fresh air and he'll be fine. He's content to chill in the bathroom for now, which is kind of gross, but he can take care of himself. So we head upstairs and through a crawl space to enter the upstairs laundry. The chute is blocked and one of the coins is buried inside it, so we chuck Eddie's soda stash down the hatch and clear up the blockage like an emergency nurse near a furry convention. And that's the 2nd coin down. Finally, we hop out of Eddie's window. I don't know who keeps wrapping these things in white sheets, but it's really useful for keeping glass away from your hands. Good thinking. Out here is by far the worst Motel 6 pool you've ever seen, and it's swarming with Karens. And you know what that means? Maximum effort. Final coin in hand, it's time to confront the 2nd upright standing piece of interactive furniture that takes coins to operate that stands between us and finding Mary. I ace the puzzle first try because real gamers always kill it on normal difficulty and get the key to room 201. Once inside, we meet, You okay down there, Kick Puncher? Well, that was gross. What the hell was bro doing? Now that the bad boy has left, it's time for an adventure into a land of OSHA violations, starting with everybody's favorite, uncomfortably high floor gap in an apartment building. It's so hard to find a good contractor these days. One time, my dad called a guy on Craigslist to hang some drywall, and when he arrived at our house, he took one look at the deckhand railing and ripped it out with one hand and proudly said, "I think this needs fixing too," with a big goofy smile on his face. I'd never seen a man so brazenly hustle. After my dad decided to pay him half now and half later to fix the drywall and the stair railing, The guy disappeared for weeks, and when my dad contacted his wife to try to locate him, she said he had gone to Vegas on a bender and if we saw him to tell him to not come back. Moral of the story, you can leave your wife, travel halfway across America, and go on a proper bender for only $1,800 if you try hard enough. We stan a frugal king. Speaking of self-care, the Karens in this otherworld apartment complex are even worse off than before. If an enterprising Korean couple were to open a spa here, they'd make a killing. I knew by this point that Silent Hill can be a bad neighborhood sometimes, but it's crazy to me that someone would chain their old antique radio to the ceiling. Everyone just uses Spotify now. We come across the girl from the graveyard and find out her name is Angela. She's having a pity party in this bedroom with an impressive sex mirror and tells me she's into knife play. I tell her she's too young for me and she's like, fine, you can keep the knife then, I'm out of here. Honestly, she could have hurt herself running around with this thing, but there's also monsters everywhere, so leaving her only weapon behind seems like a stupid idea, but then again, she didn't even ask me if I had protection first, so clearly she likes things that go bump in the night, like herpes. Once she makes her decision to leave entirely because of me, I go elbow deep in a strange hole. I then find my way to the basement and have a go at the big boy. He eventually realizes he forgot that it's leg day and decides to show mercy on me so he can get a workout in. Respect. I find Laura and my immediate impulse is to push her off the wall, but I've already got 2 strikes. Turns out she knows something about my wife, but she vanishes into the fog like Grandma's next anecdote after 3 glasses of wine, and finally I make it into our special spot and Mary is hoified? She isn't Mary after all, she's just a succubus named Maria, and I can live with that for now despite how utterly bizarre it is that I'm looking for my wife and find a version of my wife in the fog in the place I'm trying to find her, but instead of it being her, it's not her, it's some lady who is a dead ringer for her in a miniskirt. Man, this game is really confusing with its metaphors and similes. She talks me into a date at the nearby motel. She finds some of her old clothes, but the place is pretty run down, so we bounce. We run into a complaint of Karen's, and I use my super strength to open a slightly rusted fence. Man, I'm so impressive. I then rip an exterior hood exhaust pipe right out of this car like it was paper because I'm a superhero. You'd think with these powers I could do something slightly more important than attack a large amount of women in pursuit of my wife who died 3 years ago, and you'd be right. Maria and I resume our date at a nearby strip club. Rad. We talk about our exes, and she pours us some drinks, but I can't be sure what she did to that bottle because she was in the room a while before me, so I declined because my university dating safety course told us to always be careful accepting drinks from strangers. It's such good advice. Maria's like I know a spot and takes me to this romantic garden in the middle of town. Then she starts rambling about local history or whatever, I don't know. I'm thinking I should have said yes to that drink and it would have been spiked with some good shit for me to be interested in whatever she's yapping about. I say this place sucks, let's go see a movie, and we leave. Once we get to the theater, the front door is locked, but I decide to be spontaneous and break into the back window. Maria's like, what if somebody calls the cops? And I'm like, did you not also casually commit crimes in high school like most American teenagers? Speaking of good company, we find Eddie chilling in the theater. He's eating a bucket of pink slop and is kind of staring into the distance. He must be pretty high to be this into the movie when nothing's playing. Silly Eddie. Anyway, Laura's running around here somewhere, and I know she knows something about my wife, so I go looking for her. She decides, like always, to be a pain in the ass and takes off before Maria and I can catch her. The little brat ran into a hospital, and I'm like, yeah, good thinking. This is the best place for you to already be once I catch you. Maria decides to sleep off that booze, and I'm like, girl, you had 1 drink and you're ready to pass out? I knew you laced it with GHB, and I get back to my search. I seek out a staff member to let her know Maria is using one of their beds, and when the nurse asks me how I'd like to pay, I joke, with head. She sees through my casual attempt to diffuse the tension of her question with humor and immediately knows that I'm broke and can't afford it. Because this is America, my only alternative option is trial by combat, and so I beat her ass into the ground. I find a shotgun in this security locker. It's about time I got my hands on some real firepower. Now people will respect me when I establish my boundaries. So I start reading through some of the notes of this place. They have a variety of mental illnesses, and the director of the hospital is determined to cure them. One he sends to the pool, one makes herself a little fort in the basement, and one in the bath. I can't imagine what a pain it must be trying to make sure these patients keep their identity bands on, like when a boutique limited run Korean facial moisturizer gets the entire drop sniped by bots at 12:01 a.m. At some point you're probably happy if some patients took any pills at all and didn't break anything in between their howling screams of madness and torment. Anyway, it took me like 4 tries before I realized the secret runes that unlocked the safe are on the map, and I don't have to try to remember the symbols and run back and forth. Modern gaming has such convenient features. I unlock the rooftop, and it's coming down harder than the Southern District of New York Attorney General's office on P. Diddy. There's a lift up here that looks like it was made in 1945, and surprise, the big boy's back. He pushes me down a shaft, and that's so rude. At least let me take out an insurance policy first so we can split the proceeds. I wake up at the bottom with a worse headache than Bill Cosby's wife after their honeymoon and have to find my way out. A few doors down, we encounter Laura. She's playing down here because the scariest monsters always lurk in the deepest caves. She pretends that we're friends, and while James seems down for it, I'm honestly sick of her and would rather leave her here. We work towards finding the stairs up when she locks us into an evil-looking room and calls us the worst slur imaginable, a fart face. We have to fight a bedridden ceiling dweller, and once he's dispatched, we're snatched by a second one. We wake up in hospital hell, and things have taken a turn for the worst. Just look at this wallpaper. Awful color. Now there's a new challenge: find 2 codes for 2 locks and a key to the special box that we've uncovered. Turns out there's not a damn thing in the box, which I think is the developer's idea of a joke, and this sad lady is holding a coin in her mouth. I take it because you have to be ruthless to survive on the mean streets of Silent Hill. We track down the ring, and Maria finds me here in the basement, and she immediately starts complaining about how I abandoned her and left her to die, and she was almost killed back there, and honestly, she's beginning to sound a lot like a Karen. We find Dracula's coffin, and we jack his jewelry. No hard feelings, but I'm sure you can get more. We pop open the old lady like a gynecologist with a can opener, and inside, we have to run from Big Bad. He catches Maria and stabs her through the midsection, and I'm no doctor, but at least we're at a hospital so you can get that checked out anyway, and I have things to do, I'll see you later, and I leave her with the Big Bad to figure out her life. I run away, and finally it's time to find out what's behind the giant wall of sheets with the bloody red messages on it. Speaking of which, who's running around writing all these things on the walls like a complete psychopath? I'm convinced it's Laura, but she needs a stepladder for half of these and more stamina than David Goggins after 3 Red Bulls. Turns out it's just a giant gate behind the sheet walls, and worse yet, there's a bar-grasping monster with vagina feet clinging upside down to the grated floors. Talk about having that gorilla grip. We see Angela again staring at the statue. She tells me she thinks her mom isn't actually here in Silent Hill, and I tell her that we should probably get the hell out of the open in the middle of the night. At the same time, we're still keeping an eye out for Laura, and when we mention her, Angela rages and runs away. Look, Laura bothers me too, but fleeing just at the first mention of her name is a bit dramatic. Typical teenager. We get on the infinite staircase of hidden level loading, and at the bottom is a room with some weird paintings on the wall. Like this one here, where Shovel Knight is laughing at his friend's penis size. Classic bro humor. Anyway, we casually jump down the dark hole because sane travel options were abandoned at the start of this game, and down here we find another deep hole to plunge into because my man James is never at a loss for new holes to explore. Inside is a prison cafeteria where we see Eddie again, and it's about time we saw a friendly face. He shows us his cool new revolver and pulls a classic prank where he pretends to kill a guy with it, but it turns out he was already dead. Eddie's like that cool cousin that I never had growing up. Anyway, we're in an underground prison now, and we get to play with the scales of justice. We explore different wings of the prison and come across a poop shiv that's been left behind. James casually picks it up, and I know that he puts that right hand in some hard-to-reach places, but honestly that thing probably has Satan AIDS, so you'd never catch me touching it without payment up front. Next it's onto the sewers where we go fist-first arm diving again, and then it's up to the warden's office where it looks like his secretary changed his keys out to only be S, I, C, and K. I hope he docked your pay for this betrayal. We open his desk drawer and find a key and unlock the next part of the justice puzzle. Here we have to wear a noose and jump, and the way I see it, I can either solve the puzzle or die trying, so I went either way. I choose correctly, I think, and then we meet Angela again. She's hiding away in her old bedroom, and I'm like, bro, you've got to find a new place to live. This apartment sucks cheeks, and then her sentient door wrapped in shrink wrap that is her dad abusing her attacks me and chases me around the apartment. Very weird symbolism here, but that's just another day in the Japanese imagination. We put him down hit list because we're champions. Angela throws her CRT television at him, and somewhere a speedrunner cries out in pain. Next we stumble across Maria, and she's alive, but in prison. It looks like I was right that the hospital could fix her up, but it also looks like she caught a touch of amnesia at the same time. It's fine though, because there's no way she could ever forget this dick, and while she's thirsty, I'm a bit preoccupied with this face puzzle. After rotating this entire building around enough, I go arm spelunking and then set this rope on fire, freeing this strung up cage. We're chased by the bad boy again and through a wall of arms. I'm busy right now, but I marked this on my map to come back to later because there's something that I'd definitely like to try. We find Maria at the end of the tunnel, and she's been brutally murdered again. This girl really can't decide whether she's alive or dead, and it's time to get back to something more simple and realistic like searching for my dead wife. I pulled a bad boy's sword from the stone, and dragging it is the most realistic depiction of Cloud Strife that I've ever seen. Cosplayers should take note. I find my grave and decide to take the plunge. What's the worst that can happen? Turns out, instead of a comfy nap, we land in a deeper hallway that opens up into a meat locker. Eddie's here, and I think he's had some bad acid or something because he starts ranting and raving about being a Sigma male and how he's going to start a podcast. I'm sorry, Eddie, but a podcast is where I draw the line, and I decide I have to take him out for his own good. He still has his revolver, and it hits like a truck, but unfortunately for Eddie, I'm a crack shot, and I take him down with ease. I say a prayer, and I know Eddie's up there in bro heaven slaying puss, and he's better for it. I hit this boat and decide to get in a few laps to work off the adrenaline. I realize I've rowed across the entire lake, and I'm at the 5-star hotel on the other side. I'm gonna be honest, this place is really pretty. I like it a lot. Unfortunately, Satan is waiting for me here, and she's decided that not only are we friends, but now she wants to find my wife too, and she knows her from their time together in the hospital. It's kind of weird to befriend small children, but I might pity her too if I knew that she had cancer. She sprints off, and I'm happy to let her leave. I start looking around the place, and I find a light bulb in the mouth of a fish effigy, and it looks like the Karens have infested this place too, and of course they'd occupy a hotel where they can abuse the staff 24/7. I do my duty as a red-blooded American and eradicate the infection. I find this room and wonder if Laura just got her first time of the month or something, but it turns out that it's just red paint on the walls. I decide to take this with me. I paint the light bulb with the red paint and put it into this vanity mirror, which reveals the 8-letter password to this locked briefcase, and of course there's a key inside. I swear this game is 1 part Where's Waldo, 1 part Fog Machine, 2 parts Escape Room, and 1 part Walmart Return Desk. I'm forced to break all of my personal boundaries to ride this elevator to the basement. There I discovered the videotape Mary and I made in this hotel years ago, and I don't remember making it, which means whatever's on it must be absolutely buck wild. I find my way out, re-equip myself, and make for the music box puzzle in the entryway of the hotel. I have to admit, this puzzle ended up taking the longest out of any of the entire game, and I didn't even realize there was a second half to it with the poems until minutes into it, but I do solve it eventually. I get another key that opens the 3rd floor. Finally, I can get back to the room that Mary and I stayed in before, and I'm lucky to see that there's a VCR player on the floor already plugged in. Nice. I checked the room for some moisturizer to get my face ready for the viewing session, but there's none here, so this will be a dry run. That's okay, I've been through worse, and my right arm's seen so much action so far in this game that it should be pre-lubed. Anyway, I put the tape in, and it's mostly Mary talking about how much she likes it here. Then we cut to the fun stuff with a bit of breath play as I give her the old thrust and squeeze. Laura shows up without even knocking, but with the well-trained reflexes of a 30-something man, she'll never know what she missed. I tell Laura that unfortunately it's true that Mary passed away due to an unfortunate choking accident, and she gets mad and runs away. I wake up in hotel hell, stewing in my own misery, and Angela's here too somehow. She's casually set the place on fire. I tell her she should really put this out and stop lighting fires because hell already has enough, and she decides to leave. A few doors down, I'm back in the labyrinth, and Maria gets stabbed again. Now there's 2 bad boys, and I have to fight them both. Unfortunately, they're both so afraid of me that they commit Sudoku. And up top, I see Maria, and she activates her Karen transformation. I put her down, and I get the true ending, where I walk off into the fog with Laura, leaving Silent Hill behind forever. Subscribe.